What's going on, everyone? My name is Everett Delorme, and we are now on day one of Men's VNL. I am here in Ottawa at Rob and I's Airbnb that we're going to be at for the rest of the week. I'm sure you're going to see tons of it in our later videos, but today, right now, it's early in the morning because we got to get this done before we go to the first practice. But we're going to preview Team Canada for the 2023 Men's VNL. If you've been following along, obviously you know that they've already had some exhibition matches against Brazil. So obviously we're going to talk about those a little bit later. But first, we're just going to go over the 30-man roster, and then we're going to look down at what they've come up with the 14-man for this weekend, and really what Team Canada is going to look like now in this new era with Thomas Samuel at the head of the team. And it's definitely been interesting so far in a very, very good way. We'll talk about that later. But first and foremost, let's just jump into it. Recap a little bit on last year. Has to be one of the worst years. It's definitely the worst year for Team Canada men's volleyball since I've been around, without a doubt. But still at a better spot overall than when I joined Team Canada all the way back in 2011. I think we were ranked 27th in the world back then. So being ranked 16th is still pretty good. It still gives us a shot at the Olympics if we can make a bit of a better run, because the way that the Olympic qualifying is going to be working is we're seeing the Olympic qualifying tournaments happen later on this year, and that's going to be the big tournament at the end of, I think it's September, and then the other places are going to be picked by the top ranked teams based off the world rankings at the end of the 2024 VNL. So still being in 16th place is a good spot for Team Canada. Last year's VNL was pretty bad. I have to say it. 15th overall, just one place out of relegation. Thank God Australia was worse than us. That's all I have to say about that. Of course, the World Championships, pretty much the same. Not making it out of pool. Only beating China, losing to, who do we lose to? Italy, and then we lost to Turkey. So last season was definitely not the greatest for Team Canada, and I think it's one that everyone is going to want to remember or forget quickly. And you know what? I think they might. I think you might after what I've seen so far. But let's jump into it. Just right off the bat, let's look at the pools for this 2023 Volleyball Nations League. Of course, week one, we were right here in the nation's capital, the home of the national team in Ottawa. So you know that we're stoked to be here. That's going to be awesome alongside the USA, Cuba, Argentina, Italy, Germany, the Netherlands, and Brazil. Can't wait. Can't wait. First time in a while that we haven't had Serbia, so that's kind of nice. Just switch it up a little bit. Love to have the Italians back, and of course, our North American friends in the United States and Cuba. We get things kicked off tomorrow against Cuba, so that is going to be exciting. Ronnie and I don't have a bet on the game yet, but I think we should. I really think we should. All right. But as I mentioned, each team gets to nominate 30 athletes for the 2023 Volleyball Nations League. You don't have to use all those 30 athletes, but that's the pool of players that you can pick from. So we're just going to go by position to see what are the athletes Team Canada has picked so far. So these are going to be the outside hitters for oh look, Ronnie's always there. He's always creeping. First one in the chat. These are going to be the outside hitters for the 2023 Volleyball Nations League. You'll see it's quite a long list, and I have put them down in some type of ranking and order as I see them. So we've got Mara at the top, and then at the bottom, I mean, Jackson Young is the youngest on this list. He's the one guy still going back into U Sports, although actually that's not true. I think Cooper's going back into U Sports, but still, I do think Jackson Young has a fantastic year at Nipissing, but I don't think he's going to be touching the national A team anytime soon. But let's just go through this list. Stephen Marr, Nick Hogue, Eric Lepke, Brody Hofer, Matthias Elser, Jesse Elser, Sam Cooper, Evan Filardo out of Toronto, Logan House out of Brock. He played professionally in Austria this year, and then Jackson Young. I think it's a good core. We've got some young guys coming up. Falardo, first time being in the national team program. It's pretty crazy. He in talking to him, he got signed by one of the top agents in all of volleyball, who's has Mar and Lepke right after the national championships, and he wasn't entirely sure what he was going to do, whether he was going to play pro or just go into the professional world. But he signed with Leo and now is heading to Italy to play B2 in the A2. So massive news there for Evan Falardo just to make this team and be on this roster. So that's pretty awesome. Logan House also had a pretty good year in Austria and coming out of Brock. But all of these guys were given tryouts, and including Sam Cooper as well. But ultimately they were dropped down to the B team. Jesse Elser was also with the team for the exhibition games against Brazil, and we'll talk about the top picks for this roster a little bit later on. But yeah, this is what the outsides look like. It's very, very skinny in terms of pro talent. You've got the top three, Mar, Hogue, and Lepke, who of course are all professionals, all have the talent. But then down there, other than that, it's guys who are still in U Sports or fresh out of U Sports. Logan House, I think this is his first year playing professionally, so we're going to we'll stick him in with that crowd. So it is a pretty a pretty inexperienced outside core. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, Mara is going to be the centerpiece there. Hogue has been a mainstay on the national team for a while, and we'll see if we see Eric Lepke this summer. He has been dealing with some bacterial infection issues that came up at the end of the year in Italy, and he's still battling those, and I do believe he's still back home with the family in Minnesota. All right, that's the outsides. We're going to move on to the middles here. It's early. Yes, Ronnie, I know it's early, but Netherlands starts practice in 28 minutes, and I definitely want to go check that out. And then it's Team USA, so that's why I had to get it done, because that we're going to be going live at least one other time. I'm going to be doing some interviews with some coaches as well. So yeah, this is going to be done a little bit earlier. All right, now the middles. Here's what we got down the middle. Lucas Van Berkel, Danny Demyanenko. Love to see him back in the fold. Pearson Ishenko, Jordan Schnitzer, Jackson Howe, Finn McCarthy, and Liam Christensen. He had a great year over at Winnipeg. Now he's getting a chance. Mostly with mostly be with the B team. And hopefully, and I know talking to some of the guys that he had a really good year over at Winnipeg, and now giving him a shot with the national team. Big body, tall guy, nice and jumping. Of course, Finn McCarthy had a pretty good year over at Prague in the Czech League. He's still in the fold. He'll be joining the B team on Monday, or today. That's today as well. And so will Jackson Howe. You'll see, though, that Jackson Howe is underneath both Schnitzer and Ishenko in that depth chart. And we'll talk about why in a little minute. Schnitzer, I think, had a fantastic year for Lüneburg. Really put himself on the map professionally. I hear he's going to France next year. But he had an awesome year for one of the top teams in Europe. I do believe that Lüneburg has secured a Champions League spot for next year, so that's awesome. Good for them. Pearson Ishenko also having a good season at Lüneburg, but Schnitz was definitely the number one guy. And then Danny Demyanenko, of course, just signed another contract for Montpellier, going back to the squad that he's been with a number of years now. And he's kind of been in and out of the national team's lineup for a while. We've seen him at a few competitions, but this will be the first time. We didn't see him last year, so this is going to be the first time, I believe, since COVID that we see Demyanenko. And, of course, Lucas Van Berkel. He's going to be the one mainstay, the solid anchor that we have down in the middle for the Maple Volleys. All right, next up we have our opposites. And first and foremost, no Shawan Vernon Evans. If you haven't heard, he is on the beach this summer with Stephen Marshall. It's something they had planned to do last year, but then Marshall needed a little bit of surgery, and so they couldn't do it. And then Marshall was convinced to go back to play for the national team for the World Championship. So this is what we've got. Sclater, Arthur Schwartz, finally making his national team debut on the right side. Last year, we just saw him play in the middle, but he was coming off an injury. Jordan Canham, Matt Neves, and Christopher Byam out of Mount Royal. Canham, Neves, Byam, all B team guys. They'll be starting their training today. Slater honestly looks real good. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And Schwartz, I mean, he's really been coming together as an opposite in Italy, and that's what he's going to be playing moving forward in Italy. So it's really awesome to see those two guys give a bit of a different look. Now, moving on to the liberos. The liberos is definitely the least experienced out of any of our guys. All three of them just coming straight out of school. We got Landon Curry out of Alberta, Justin Louis out of Stanford. Of course, he was on the team last year, so he's that one returning guy. And then Zach Collins out of Sherbrooke. I really think that he earned this spot. Sherbrooke did. I think Sherbrooke surprised everyone outside of the RSEQ to go and get second this year, to just handle Alberta the way they did in the semifinals. Unfortunately, they did get handled a little bit in the finals by Trinity Western. Of course, you can watch those matches on our YouTube page where you're watching right here. I think Zach Collins definitely deserves a shot. He was so solid in serve receive and in defense for the Vareyard this year. And even though he's a left side for Sherbrooke, I think he can make that transition pretty naturally. Oh, Ronnie. Apparently, all of the Cuban players lost all their luggage coming into Canada. So that does suck. I won't lie. All right, now finishing up with the setters. This is where we're going to be talking a lot about today. Yes, Luke Kerr is at the top of that depth chart. We're going to talk about it, but not quite now. Jay Blankenau, Derek Epp, Brett Walsh, and Max Elgert all on the list. You could say that there's a depth of setters, considering that Blankenau has set this team before to the World Championships. Brett Walsh has led this team. Derek Epp a little bit last year as well. So that's awesome. And then, but yes, Luke Kerr at the top of that list. And trust me, that's something that we are going to be talking about. No doubt about it. And Devin, maybe you're right. Maybe I did pull some plugs with Air Canada. Got all of their gear yanked, and they're going to have to play in flip-flops on Tuesday night against us. No, why would I do that? If I had those powers, I would have used them to bring Simon into Canada, because that's what he originally wanted to do. Yeah, how would you have felt about that, Ronnie? Your favorite player playing with the Maple Leaf? What could have been? Yes, if you didn't know, actually, that is a thing. Robert Lenny Simon did apply to potentially become Canadian in the way that other Cubans have been naturalized by other countries, and he wanted to become Canadian. First, he tried Canada, and then he tried Bulgaria, but unfortunately, it just didn't pan out. I don't think the Canadian government really cared all that much that there was a volleyball superstar that wanted to join our team, because volleyball's only relevant every 4 years in this country. So luckily, just that year, next year. All right, moving on now to the warm-up matches. We talked about it. Canada took on Brazil Thursday, Friday here at the Centre Sportif de Gatineau, the National Team Training Center. Game 1 is already up on the channel. You can check that out. Game 2 should be up either today or tomorrow. But big classic volleyball source baseline highlights. You gotta love them. You guys are already going nuts on them, so appreciate y'all for that. Also going nuts on some old videos too. You guys, it's thank you. That's all you can say. Thank you. Compared to where we were last year at this time to now, it's awesome. But just to sum up a little bit of these matches against Brazil, I will say that having watched them, I'm much happier and much more excited for this year than I previously was. I don't know if you saw our VNL, overall, preview for the men, but my goal for Canada was really just to not get relegated. It was truly just we need to stay up at the top. Maybe you win a game or two more than last year, but I think that might be tough. And now I'm pretty happy with what I saw, and I'm pretty positive. I think Samuel Vuo's come in and done a pretty good job so far at setting things up. And what I keep hearing from the guys is that he loves simplicity. Take the simplest form of volleyball and simplify it even more. And it really, really worked out. I thought our defense was scrappy. Blocking was pretty good. And offensively, everyone was getting a chew. So it was good to see. Night one, lost night two. Night two came back, and Brazil came back, and they were really strong, especially in the middle. They really, really ate us up in the middle, and that was without Lucas as well. But I will have to say, overall, for this Brazilian team, they might struggle. This isn't the Brazilian teams of old. They have Flavio down the middle, and you still have Lucarelli on the outside, and Alan. You've got Alan and Abuba on the right. But, I mean, we saw how dominant Leal was for them last year at the World Championships, and he won't be there. Lucas is on the roster, but he isn't around, especially for this week. So it's really going to be up to those other guys. And interestingly enough, I think that setter battle between Cachopa and Bruno is going to come into play quite a bit. They're playing up those two off of each other a lot. But we're not here to talk about Brazil. Obviously, we are here to talk about Team Canada. So I thought that Canada played great. Even in the lost match, they still showed a lot of fight. And let's be honest, I think if we were out there beating Brazil in 2 straight matches before this tournament, we would be blowing our load way too early. Maybe it's good that last year we lost to France and then beat France. So maybe it's good that we beat them and lose them. So we're coming into to this competition with a little bit of with a little bit of a humility. Lucas undergoing a sanction from the FIVB for the middle finger from last year's awarding ceremony. I forgot about this. Thank you, Ronnie. You're actually good for something sometimes. Okay, I'm not even going to get into that because that's just classic boomer and trench coat behavior. But yeah, it was good atmosphere, good times. Love to see get the Sound Specific Get to Know just packed. Full house on both nights, so that was awesome. All right, now we're going to be moving on from talking about that because at that the during this match, Team Canada had 16 athletes, and everyone knew it had to drop down to 2, and everyone was talking about it, and it looked like, talking to B team guys and just talking to other guys who've been around the gym and whatnot, it looked like we needed to lose a left side and a setter from the roster. Those are going to be the 2 positions that we needed to drop to get to 14 for the overall roster. Actually, let's just jump in. This is what Week 1's roster is going to look like. Stephen Marr, Nick Hogue, Brody Hofer, Matthias Elser, all holding down the left side. You're going to notice, as I talked about, no Eric Lepke. Lepke is still rehabbing and still getting through that viral infection that he had at the end of the year of Italy. So I would be very surprised if we saw Lepke at all in this 2023 VNL. First and foremost, as a person, I just hope that he gets healthy, and I hope that he gets better because he's been dealing with this for a while. But then from the volleyball angle as well, there's more important tournaments this year than the VNL, namely that Volleyball Nations League. And he can still come back and play NORCECA Championships to get his legs under him just before that down in down in Charleston, West Virginia. So he doesn't necessarily need to be playing VNL. And it also gives maybe our younger guys some chance to move up. Down the middle, Lucas Van Berkel, Danny Demyanenko, Piersashenko, and Jordan Snitzer. On the opposite, Sclater and Schwartz. And then in the setter position, Luke Kerr and Jay Blankenau. And I'm going to tell you a story, a little bit about the setters moving forward. And then in the libero position, Justin Mr. Justin Louis and Landon Curry. This is what it looks like now, just in their respective positions. And once again, I have ordered them in terms of depth chart. So you'll notice Landon Curry above Justin Louis. If you watched the film from Game 1 against Brazil, man, he balled out. He really, really did. He was making good digs. He was passing pretty decent, and you're playing up against Brazil in your first, even though unofficially, your first national team match. And he's a guy that hasn't really been in the folds, and I remember being a little bit disappointed when I didn't even see him on any roster for last year, for his A team or B team, because I thought he was a guy that kind of deserved it. And he did make that transfer from Thompson Rivers to Alberta over the COVID break, and it just seems like that really paid off for him. I didn't get to see the best of him at Nationals in McMaster this year, and bringing that week up with some of the U of A guys, Jordan Canham and whatnot. It looks like that's one that they are wanting to forget, and it wasn't the best time for them. But I was really, really impressed by his just tenacity and overall just the way he approached the game. It was really, really, really cool to see, and I've been really high on Justin Louis for a while. I've known him for a long time through Madawaska and just watching him through the OVA, and I've always thought that Justin Louis was going to be the next guy. But we did see him struggle a little bit last year with the A team when he got called up for VNL, and then I know he had he didn't start with the B team last year. That was Jordan Pereira. But then he did have a pretty good year at Stanford, so I was interested to see him coming back. But unfortunately, we didn't get to see much of him because Landon Curry was leading the way the entire way. And I won't lie, I think Curry's our guy. They're both going to be traveling. You're going to have two liberos, and I think this is going to maybe fuel Justin to push it. I don't think it's Curry's job outright now. But man, he ever look good this weekend, and it was super awesome to watch. And we chatted a little bit, and he talked about how important it was for him to make that switch to Alberta because it really just helped push him that much more. And then of course the other one to talk about is the setting position. No Derek Epp and Luke Kerr in the number 1 spot, and this is what I predict Team Canada's starting lineup to be in a best case scenario. Of course, VNL going on. There's you're going to have to play some different lineups, but I think you're going to have Mar and Hogue on the left side, Van Berkel and Demyanenko down the middle, and Luke Kerr setting, and Ryan Sclater on the right side. Of course, we just talked about Landon Curry as well. And now, for those who don't know who Luke Kerr is, he's a bit of a journeyman. Graduated from Manitoba now a number of years ago, and he's played in a few different places professionally, but he really wasn't on my radar at all until last year. Just in terms of being in the national team setting. Of course, I knew him from his time at Manitoba, but last year I was blown away by him at the Pan Am Cup with the B team, and that was kind of Canada's best result. They finished second, beat the United States in the semifinals, lost to Cuba in the finals. Once again, you can check those matches out over here on Volleyball Source. But I was blown away by how he ran his offense and how well he sets the ball. He just sets pillows, just understands what his hitters need, and he's truly a hitter setter. And just can float the ball in there, can chuck it fast, can run the middle well, but also always just hits a very, very hittable ball. And I remember Benjo, when I was talking to him about World Championships, telling me that he had to take Luke out of the equation just because it was already hard enough to make that call, and in his mind that Luke had made a case for maybe going with the A team. So there was already that, and watching him with the B team last summer was very, very was eye-opening. I thought he did a fantastic job. Into this year, we saw him on the B team roster. That was announced a little bit earlier, and we saw him make the extended roster. But there's clearly a divide. I think in some countries you can the coaches can truly pick from all 30, whereas in Canada, obviously that's just not the case. And now I thought it was going to be Jay Blankenau and Derek Epp and Brett Walsh, right? But then when Brett Walsh was put on the B team roster, it kind of is like, oh, that's crazy. Like they're just going to be going with Jay and Derek. I mean, makes sense. If I was Brett Walsh, personally, maybe this makes me a bad teammate. If I had been playing with the A team for as long as I have, and I got brought down to the B team, I just wouldn't play. I'd just take the summer off. But to his credit, I hear like he's going to be playing, and that's awesome. But so what happened with this year was it looked like either Jay or Derek. I'm pretty sure it was Jay was supposed to be late for training, just to finishing up his year, to taking some time off, all that stuff. So Lewis told Luke Kerr to come in and get there early and get some reps. So he was getting some reps, but then it turns out that Jay was actually coming on time and they didn't need him. So Luke Kerr was just in the gym, just doing setting reps on his own and just working out and just being around the national team, waiting for B team season and training to start. And apparently Samuel Vuo was watching him practice and train and was like, Luke, how about you jump in? And he jumped in, and now it's very, very much looking like Luke Kerr is the starting setter for this national team moving forward. He got the start both nights against Brazil. He played the most both nights against Brazil. We saw Joey Blankenau come in with that double sub, coming with Schwartz on the right side and him setting. And then we saw a little bit of Derek Epp night 1, no Derek Epp night 2. And that's kind of when people were talking around the gym, like those in the know being like, it looks like it's good. Look, it's going to be Epp. And then the other one was Jesse Elser, because Jesse Elser didn't get anything, didn't get any playing time whatsoever. Matthias got in at least in the third and fourth set against Brazil. But yeah, it was pretty evident, especially after he got the start in match 2 and was really just shown in match 2, that Luke Kerr is going to be the starting setter for Team Canada right now, is going to be the starting setter for the Maple Volleys. And I'm here for it. I really, really am. On one side, I think it's really too bad for guys like Derek Epp and Jay Blankenau, who have put in their time, and Brett Walsh too, of course, who have put in their time and have been involved with this national team and have been around the team for a long time. But ultimately, I've had some of the best players on the Maple Volleys tell me that his balls are the favorite balls that they like to hit. That sounds a little bit dirty. If you're watching this, get your mind out of the gutter. And it looks good. You know, as I said, Samuel Vuo looks like he really, really values simplicity. And to me, that's just Luke Kerr. He makes everything look easy and look so simple. And I've been told he gives really good energy to the ball when he's setting it. So as of right now, it looks like Luke Kerr from Manitoba is the number 1 starting setter for this team. And I'm going to leave you with this. When I was editing the first game's video and even the second game's video too, even though it's not done, there's often times where I've been watching and I get glimpses of TJ. And I think it might just be the hair and you know, his size and stuff like that. But sometimes the way he moves, he sets the ball a little bit differently. And I'm not sure if he has TJ's elite decision making, and that's really what set TJ apart, just his ability to think the game at such a high level. But there's really looks like there's these hints of TJ Sanders, who's been Canada's best setter probably ever. So that being said, I'm really, really excited for what's could be to come for Luke Kerr. Ultimately, when you look at this roster overall, it's very, very similar to last year. Maybe that one guy who saw last year who we won't be seeing this year at all. And I mean, I have like differentiating opinions on that. But ultimately, I think his blocking does need to get a little bit better. And with the simplicity of this offense, we're not going to be running the middle all that often, and he's primarily a offensive mind in the middle. And I think it's best case, it's the best interest for Samuel Vuo, where you've got these positions where you've got solid pro, and then maybe take a chance on some of the younger guys. Um, Surprisingly enough, we didn't see Snitz all that much against Brazil the other nights, and we saw him a little bit in the third and fourth against Brazil on the second night, but mostly it was Van Berkel and then a switch between Demyanenko and Ashenko. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. Man, hopefully I don't have another coughing fit like I did on the 9x9 the other night. That would not be fun. Ooh, all right. Oh, and then the right side. Yeah, let's talk about the right side. Sclater and Schwartz. I think we're going to see a mix of both of those guys. Sclater's actually looking really, really good. Spent this year in the UAE, and he was coming in fast, hitting the ball hard. So the fact that we have two look right sides, like Sclater, who's fast and he's experienced and he can chisel off the block, use the block, and Schwartz, who needs a bit of a higher set, more of a looping set, but physically is up there with the best in the world. I think that's awesome and a much, much better spot for Canada to be than last year, where Sclater didn't have his best international year, wasn't looking too great after taking a lot of volume in France over the past couple of years from Montpellier, or no, it was Montpellier then Set. He's looking healthy right now. So all in all, this is what the starting lineup is looking like. And I won't lie, I kind of like it. You add in Eric Lefke in there as well too into the mix for later on this summer. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm not as pessimistic, let's say, as I was even a week ago. All right. Is that it? I have notes down in my book. They're sitting by my bed here at the Airbnb, so I'm not entirely sure. This has been a much quicker, condensed little version than I'd usually like to do. I know Rob's was close to an hour for the USA men, but I mean the reality is that we've already seen them in action. And if you want to do that, you can just head over to our page and watch Canada versus Brazil, match number 1. Maybe put it out to the chat to see if they have any questions. It's like super early here. It's like not even 8 a.m. yet. Oh, wait. I guess I did forget one thing to talk about here. Week 1 schedule. As we mentioned, week 1 here in Ottawa. This is going to be their best chance to watch Team Canada Volleyball live. So if you're in the nation's capital region, you're in Gatineau, you're in Montreal, Kingston, hell, Toronto, make your way down, come hang out. TD Place is actually a fantastic place to watch some volleyball. I've heard they're actually close to getting sold out, especially for the Saturday night match against USA. You got to love it. Canada versus USA, the rivalry, it's going to be awesome. But starting it off strong, night number 1, Tuesday night, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. against Cuba. Then a couple of days off for the Maple Volleys, then playing all weekend. Argentina on Friday, USA on Saturday, and then closing it out against Germany on Sunday evening at 6 p.m. So if you're in the nation's capital area, make sure to come down. If you are coming down, make sure you say hi. Rob will be here in a couple of hours. 3 hours, I believe, 3.5. I think he lands at 11:30. He's going to be missing his beloved Team USA practice today, so that's going to be fun. All right, my predictions for week 1. Ooh. I think we're going to beat Cuba, lose to Argentina, because we always lose to Argentina. It's just they're one of our worst nemesises. Lose to the USA, but in a tight one. I think that one's going to go 5, just because of the atmosphere at all, and then round it out with a win against Germany on Sunday. I think Canada's going to go for 2-2, and if we can go 2-2, get an 8-8 record through this year's VNL, I would be absolutely more than happy. Just stay out of that relegation zone and let Bulgaria and Cuba fight for that one. And maybe China too. China actually, I did pick China in our preview to get relegated. So we'll have to see how that goes. All right, now I know I probably missed some things. It's early here. There's a lot to talk about, but I think that's a pretty good overall breakdown. Everything I've heard so far is that they really love Samuel Vuo. Everything is going to be really, really simple under him, which is maybe the one area that Ben Josephson didn't excel in. It sounded like everything was quite complicated last year. And I'm expecting us to have a pretty good summer. I'm much more optimistic now after having seen them in action, having seen them play, having seen their response to, the pushback from Brazil on night number 2. They didn't kind of break down. They didn't implode. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes up. I do think that we're going to see quite a bit of Brody Hofer this year. And speaking to some of the guys, I think he's really come along, especially as a serve receiver. And I know that's kind of been the knock with him, of him, especially within the Discord. And then we're going to see now how Luke Kerr can handle the pressure. I mean, he's looked good with the B team. He's looked good in exhibition matches. Now can he put it together and help guide this team to some wins? Because the setting position is that one that we've really been missing out on, and no one's truly grabbed the reins so far in terms of just being the number one setter, being like, hey, this is my team, and I'm the guy. So maybe Luke can be that guy to do it. Only one way to find out. If you want to watch all of these matches, make sure to head over to volleyballworld.tv. You can purchase a pass there. But if you just want to watch Canadian matches, those matches are all going to be streamed live for free on cbcsports.ca. And maybe, if you live elsewhere and have a VPN and you're a fan of Team Canada, you can just use it in Canada. It's pretty easy. And once again, if you are in the nation's capital, if you're in Ottawa, if you are around, make sure to come out, even if it's just to see us, even if it's just to say hi, see us. I know that there's a number of people from the Discord who are going to be here in Ottawa for it. We're going to get as many of y'all together, and we're going to go out for drinks after one of the games, probably Friday night. I think that would be a good time. And yeah, super stoked for it. Can't wait. Make sure you guys tune in to Volleyball Nations League. Oh, and make sure you follow us over on the Discord. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. I'm heading to the venue. I'm heading to the VNL. No, I'm heading to the venue. I'm going to go watch the Dutch practice. And yeah, can't wait. Peace.